Hello and a warm welcome to the virtual open house. My name is Marina Pavlović and I'm associate professor and a member of the Center for Law, Technology and Society here at the faculty. Today, I would like to briefly introduce you to how my own research, supported by our fabulous students and the work of our Law Technology Clinic, Canadian Internet Policy and Public Interest Clinic, CIPIC, have worked together on legal reform in Canada. The path to legal reform is anything but linear, and it takes time, years or decades, to move the needle. I also want to make it clear that this is but one example. It just happens to be an area of law I have worked on for the past 20 years. Our geographical proximity to the federal parliament and the Supreme Court of Canada gives us, the faculty, and our students unique opportunities to directly participate in legal reform in Canada. Take any issue from environment to family law to health law to artificial intelligence and anything else in between, and you will see that my colleagues and our students have been at the forefront. Common law section is a wonderful place to learn and intellectually grow. So much so that I have come to do my graduate degree here in 2002, and I never left. Research focuses on digital contracts, those pesky miles-long contracts that pop up when you download a new app, when you use a new device, or learn, shop or play online. More specifically, I have worked on one type of clause, clauses that determine how a dispute between the parties, you as users, and the corporations providing those services should be resolved. Those clauses include forum selection clauses that provide for a dispute before a court or in a specific location, or arbitration clauses that provide for resolution outside of a court system before a private adjudicator. We've all mocked these terms. And now as a society, we recognize that these contracts and these clauses in particular are highly problematic. They significantly restrict individual rights and prevent the individual parties from challenging contract terms in court. However, the law of digital contracts has very slowly developed to recognize and remedy these challenges. In late 1990s and early 2000s, the courts did not see digital contracts as being special. They were treated the same way as paper contracts. They were entirely enforceable, including these clauses that prevented access to courts. In 2006, CIPIC intervened for the first time before the Supreme Court of Canada. I was a graduate student at the time and together with several other students assisted Professor Mistral Goudreau in drafting the intervenor factum. As you saw, the Supreme Court did not see anything special in these contracts at that time. Fast forward a decade, and things have begun to slowly change. These contracts became much more pervasive, and it wasn't really just about shopping. In the meantime, we've also accumulated considerable research on these contracts. I was a co-counsel for CIPIC in its intervention before the Supreme Court of Canada in Duez versus Facebook. Supported by a brilliant hive mind of many common law students who also came to cheer from the sidelines. In 2017, 10 years after the Dell decision, the Supreme Court took a 180-degree turn. Understanding the social and legal impact of these contracts, the court did not enforce a forum selection clause, directly citing CIPIC's factum and my article. It made me famous in the eyes of the most critical of audiences, my teenage goddaughter. I'm happy to report that she will be applying to law school to begin in September 2022, so I think my job is done. We now also recognize that these contracts do not just impact consumers, they also impact small businesses. However, despite the progress in the Duez decision, the Supreme Court did not recognize the challenges for small businesses. I was privileged to be the lead counsel for CIPIC in its intervention in Telus versus Wellman, with Cynthia Koo, our graduate student at the time, being my co-counsel. We knew that the legal reform takes time, so while the decision stung, we were continuing our work and were waiting for another case. These contracts also impact the employees in the gig economy. Heller versus Uber seemed to be the perfect storm. It attracted 17 intervenors, which is unprecedented for private law cases. It's something you would see in big constitutional law cases. By now, you see also a pattern emerging. I was privileged to be the CIPIC's lead counsel, supported again by fantastic JD students. In fact, I couldn't have done it without them. They did everything from research to editing the factum to actually filing the factum with the obligatory selfie. And they were there to cheer from the sidelines. For me, these Supreme Court interventions, which almost sound routine by now, are an incredible professional personal accomplishment. It's actually beyond words. It's the common law community that helped me get there, and my job as a professor is not just to teach law or use my research to advocate in the public interest. Most importantly, I see my job as a professor to offer the students unique, engaging experiential opportunities and to support them in realizing their own dreams of practicing law. In the same way, our common law community has supported me. So just to bring it back to contracts, in a revolutionary, earth-shattering decision in Uber, the Supreme Court found that Uber's contract with the drivers was unconscionable and therefore unenforceable. The work is far from being done, despite this latest success before the Supreme Court of Canada. My work continues to explore now wider implications of these contracts, and I look forward to welcoming many of you in September and engaging in conversation and spirited discussions about these issues. Thanks for watching, and see you in September.